Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom, where we bring you engaging conversations and respectful disagreement across the social spectrum.
Injected with the quirks of everyday life.
Curl up as we navigate the complexities of this modern world with all the humor and warmth we can muster.
And the occasional gentle ribbing. We're glad you're here. Happy listening.
There was a point in time where Americans didn't just live in America. They believed in it. Not blindly, not perfectly, but deeply. There was this shared idea that if you worked hard, did the right things, played by the rules, life would stabilize. Not glamorous, not billionaire level, but solid, predictable. A house, a family, a retirement that didn't feel like a gamble. Somewhere along the way, that equation stopped balancing. The inputs stayed the same: work hard, stay loyal, do your part, but the outputs seem to have changed. Now it feels like more effort buys less stability. So the question isn't just what changed, it's whether that shift was inevitable, accidental, or the result of choices we didn't fully understand at the time.
You know, I think a lot of us grew up with this quiet belief that America was greater. Not perfect, but greater. Like there was this invisible promise in the air that if you showed up and did your best, life would meet you halfway. That stability wasn't a luxury, it was the baseline. But now it feels like we're all running harder just to stand still. Two incomes, side hustles, burnout, debt, so much debt, and still wondering if we're falling behind. And it makes you ask this uncomfortable question: did the dream change or did the system change? And if it did, was that just history doing its thing? Or were there decisions, real, tangible decisions, that slowly reshaped what America actually is?
I can remember a time when people really believed America was greater, not in a loud, flag-waving way, just a quiet confidence about the future. You didn't have to be rich to feel secure. Regular jobs built regular lives. You could plan ahead for your future. Now we have a generation or two that don't see that America dream as a possibility. It makes you pause. Did it disappear overnight? What was the catalyst from going from I want my kids to have a better life to what's the world coming to? Now we're sitting here asking a question a lot of families are asking around their own dinner table. Did something break, or did we slowly build something different than what we thought we were building? Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom.
I'm Callie.
I'm Cole.
And I'm Mom.
So I think that this conversation should be a really interesting one, just because, I mean, it's something that we're certainly feeling the impacts of. I mean, the American dream has been the American dream as long as I've been alive. This is what your goal is. This is what you do. This is how you achieve it. But I think it kind of leads itself to being questioned, especially from the perspective of a millennial. We have had so many promises made to us. If you do this, if you go to college, if you act this way, if you get this kind of job, everything will work out. And I think that a lot of millennials don't feel that way and don't believe that that was ever really an option on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the equation, I think the variables within that equation changed so much faster than what society could perceive.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, if you look at the generations right before ours, you've got Gen X and baby boomers, and I feel like for the most part, that was kind of still in place for them. I think it was fading for Gen X, but it wasn't decaying at the same rate that we saw for millennials. I mean, if we go back and we take a look at the American dream, white picket fence, a family, 2.5 kids, one income was more than sufficient. You could have a basically entry-level job working at XYZ manufacturer and send 2 kids to college. You and your wife could have a car. You had a nice enough house with a front yard and a backyard probably, and a dog and food on the table,
A retirement plan.
and a retirement plan. You could retire at 60, 65 and live pretty comfortably. And that's not only gone away, but now we're told, well, maybe you shouldn't retire until 70, 75.
After you've taken on several other jobs and after you've been doing this side hustle to really get out there and make a name for yourself after you've exploited your own sanity and desire to work and do better and earn more for the sake of burnout. Can you imagine what that's going to feel like? I mean, working at this pace, which is exponentially faster and much more consuming today than it was back then until you're 70? I'm worried.
But we are living longer, so that's part of the factor. We are a more transitional society in a lot of ways. I mean, my dad worked the same job. He started at 18 and retired at 65 from the same job. Y'all don't do that. That doesn't happen. And I would say that's to your benefit. Y'all move jobs and change jobs, and generally, for the most part, it's beneficial to you.
We still can't expect a better outcome.
I was listening to another podcast earlier this week talking about the life expectancy of Americans and how it hasn't hardly changed at all in the last couple of decades. We're kind of stuck between 74 and 79, whereas our peer nations, as he referred to them, think the UK, various places in the EU, theirs is increasing. Their life expectancy is increasing, and ours has stagnated.
I'm wondering if that's a difference of reports because I would have sworn that the US life expectancy was in the 80s.
So as of 2022, it was 77.43. As of 2023, it was 78.39. As of 2024, it was 79.25. I mean, and it's 2009 was 78.39.
So
I mean,
even if
outside
it's
of 2020 and 2021, I mean, 2021, we dropped to 76.3.
COVID,
COVID.
but still,
And
even if
2020
it's
was
80,
under 77.
if it's 80 and you're not supposed to retire until 73, 75, so you have 5 years of life after you stop working?
Not only that, I mean, I think of these little Walmart greeters working in their mid to late 70s for minimal pay and barely surviving.
And having to deal with all the people who come in and out of Walmart.
That's just not where I wanna be at the end of my life. That is not relaxing or comfortable or living off the fruits of my labors.
And I think that there's certainly a conversation in here for another day. We've talked about it a little bit. I mean, but the home size has absolutely doubled from the 1950s to today. And so the affordability of those same homes is almost
Yeah.
completely out of reach for a huge percentage of the population.
So that kinda makes me ask if this is, I mean, greed, because we went from a single income family, from generally 1 car, smaller homes. I mean, I can't say fewer children, but I mean, 2.5 was normal. And so have we wanted ourselves out of the American dream? I want that, I want this, I want that. I need,
I
not
think that's
needs, but wants.
part of it, but I also think that that's cope. I mean, if you look at the growth of wages since the 70s compared to the growth of productivity from the 70s, the separation between those two is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Uh, you have these corporations that are getting bailouts, but the people that make those corporations run, they're not getting bailed out.
I mean, and think about it. If you're talking about 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, you had really strong labor unions. Hold on, we want to make sure that these people are taken care of, that they're not being taken advantage of by their employer, by all of these titans of industry. You had significant pensions. Today, those don't exist in many,
Well,
many
and I
realities.
would say that was only in parts of the country, not universally. And I could be wrong about that with unions.
I think that it depends on the industry. I mean, I think that you also got to look at, I mean, Cole's talking about the delta between wages and all of these things, but what about the delta between college? Like what it was
Yeah.
then versus what it is today. I mean, you can't go to a private school for under 40 grand a year.
Oh, I don't know that you could do it for 40 grand anymore.
I was trying to be optimistic.
I don't know that you could do a state school for 40 grand a year.
I
And
mean,
here's what's really weird about that, because you look at the number of people who were going to college in the 50s, because everybody in my generation was sent to college. So you had an influx of individuals, but the price soared, which takes me back to greed. Did we just start charging for college tuition because we knew people would pay it?
Yes. I mean, I've said this repeatedly. I think the collegiate system is one of, if not the largest scams in America today. Because I mean, are there certain pipelines where people are getting meaningful education? Yes. Is that the majority? I don't think so.
I mean, I would agree with you, because I think the message that I heard was go to college. It doesn't matter what you go to college for. You just need to have that degree for a
Yeah, you just
prospective
need a
employer to look at.
check the box.
yeah, you just need a
Yeah.
piece of paper saying, "Yeah, I sat through class for 4 years."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my college was way cheaper than what college is today. And in all honesty, I think a lot of people would get more out of vocational training than they do out of college today.
I
So
agree.
it's cheaper and takes less time and
On
more
top of
benefit.
that, you look at all of these trades. Think about being a plumber or an electrician. I mean, those trades, they were not sexy jobs, especially coming up like in my generation. And so now there's a shortage of workers. So they can charge more for those services for the people who did. It's just this constant catch 22 of, I don't know. We'll figure it out. There's no consistency. I feel like we've become so judgy.
What do you mean?
Who wants to be a plumber? Gross. Who wants to
Well, when that
date or
plumber
marry
makes
a plumber?
150 to a $250,000 a year, that job looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And is necessary. Like, this isn't just an influencer that we could do without. This is to make sure that you don't have sewage backing up into your home.
And so you make an interesting point there, Gig. Maybe part of this is exacerbated by the millennial perspective because we do want a glamorous life. I think a lot of
Well, it
people
has to
do,
be
at least.
Instagrammable,
Yeah.
right?
And so, I mean, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Mom. House poor, where you have the nice car, you have the nice house, and there's no furniture in it because you can't afford it.
Yeah. I had friends that lived that way for years.
And I certainly think that exacerbates the problem. I don't necessarily think it's the root cause, but it doesn't make it
I don't think
better.
it's the root cause, but I do think that there is a mentality there that, and I'm not going to just say it's your generation. I think there's a mentality there that perceives social media as truth in some form or fashion. Even if intellectually we can go, "Oh, we know, that's filtered or that's set
Not
up."
real.
But
Mhm.
I still think there's a mentality there that thinks, oh, that's what my life is supposed to look like. And so
Yeah.
we just keep digging and digging and digging, trying to get our life to look like that without a basis of, should it really look like that? Is that even
Is this
reality?
within my means?
Yeah, because we are not living within our means for the most part.
I
Yeah.
was going to say, I don't know that hardly exists anymore. It's what credit cards are for, right?
I mean,
Scary.
we had a discussion yesterday about the number of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. So you're earning more money today than ever before,
But it
and
buys
more people are
less.
living. Hmm?
but it buys less.
And it
Doesn't
buys
go as
less.
far.
Yeah. You're living paycheck to paycheck.
And then you've got to add in the keeping up with the Joneses aspect of it all. You can't just take and squirrel away money. You have to go on big fancy trips, or otherwise that's not cool. You're not cool enough if you're not going international jet setting all of the time every weekend. I mean, who wants to who wants to entertain that kind of idea, that kind of lifestyle? And it's like there is no catching up.
So again, is this a perception? Or maybe more appropriately, is this a misperception of not where we are, but where we think we're supposed to be?
I think that's part of it.
I think two things can be true. Because how many people actually are going on international trips every weekend? Not anybody that I know. And I work in
But
a
that's what
very
we put online.
well educated, well paid industry. And do the people that I work with take international trips? Sure. But the team that I've worked on, we've been together for going on almost 4 years now. And one of them went to Costa Rica recently. That's the first one. And I work with people who have been in this role for 40 years, and they're not taking international trips all the time.
I
But
know
I
a lot
kind
of
of
people
wonder
who
too,
are.
Cole, if that 40-year veteran has a different mentality than what your age group has. And
Sure.
they're not even thinking about Costa Rica.
I mean, I think that that's a valid point. But again, I work in one of the most well paid industries that exists.
Yeah.
I don't own a home. I don't own a car. Could I? Yes. Could I do it and continue to save? In the modern environment? Probably not. So it's not worth it to me to go into debt for those things.
Which I don't think is the norm. I don't think that that mentality is the norm in many, many regards.
So let's go back and take a look at the perception, at the original story. We're talking about the 50s through the 80s, post World War II, Cold War era. America is still at the beginning of that phase, the manufacturing powerhouse of the world. You could go get a job at any manufacturing facility in the country and make enough to save for retirement, have 2 kids, own a home, have probably 2 cars, and send your kids to college. What happened to that?
I'm just thinking about my parents who did not save for retirement. Now, my dad worked for a company that had a pension plan, and so there was a little bit there, but he wasn't saving that money. My mom probably was because she was working in the banking industry. And so I think for her, the financials of it made more sense, but not for my dad. And when my dad died, there wasn't much there. I mean, I didn't receive a big inheritance from him.
And I don't
He
think that's the point. I'm not saying that, oh, we need to have a bunch to be left over for our grandkids and our kids to inherit,
mm,
but also I don't think you should have to be 75, 80 years old being a greeter at Walmart so that you can feed yourself.
yeah, I agree with that. I think for me, it was just there's a perception there because I mean, I was the first one to go to college. Well, that's not I was the first one to finish college, and my sister went to a really small college, so there wasn't a huge expense there. So I'm just wondering if our perception of having that job and sending your kids to college and having a retirement, maybe that's not really accurate either. Because I look at my parents and I didn't see all of that. Did they have a home and 2 cars? Yeah, and they borrowed money to send me to college, and they were not good savers at all. I mean, my parents lived on a philosophy that if you made it, you spent it.
And I think that that's an interesting thing to approach here because they didn't save and yet they still had something. Maybe it wasn't
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't very much, but isn't that kind of the point, to save at least what you need so that you have something until you die?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you need this mountain of cash to pass on,
Yeah.
but were they did he die in debt?
No.
Most of my generation will.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I mean,
even,
I am an
break even.
extreme outlier in my generation because I don't have any.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a common topic of, I paid off this credit card. I paid off one of my school loans. I still
Oh,
have
yeah.
this many tens of dozens of thousands of dollars in debt, but
But this one is done.
this one is done.
But I do think that that credit card plays a role here,
Sure.
a significant role in debt, because even if you're spending it for today, you're still paying it off tomorrow and the next day and the next day on most accounts. So, I mean, it's an exponential debt
Yeah.
that I think people just didn't see.
We've talked about this a little bit in the past, as that Americans, by and large, particularly my generation, don't really understand how to use debt. I think that's part of the problem. We use debt like a bad corporation that files for a Chapter 11.
Lets the
Mhm.
government bail them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Do
again,
everything
they
that we
don't
can, build as much debt as we can until we can't anymore, and then
and
it's
then
just
freak
over.
out.
And is that exacerbating the issue? Absolutely. But
Yeah.
if wages had grown with productivity, maybe we wouldn't have to.
I do think that's
Or
another factor, Cole, because I think everybody, I mean, you used to work maybe a 40-hour week was your, a tough one. And you went home at 5 o'clock and you didn't worry about work. And can you think of anybody who does that today who doesn't? I mean, really, Cole,
Bring home work with them.
again,
you
an
may be the
extreme
closest.
outlier.
Yeah, you may be the closest thing that I think of, but I mean, I spent years working w- with a phone or a pager on call 7 days a week. I mean, and did I work 7 days a week every week? No, but I was on call. If there was a crisis, I was there. And I worked a lot of hours that I didn't necessarily get paid for. I mean, if you broke down the hours that I put in versus what I was getting paid, it can take your salary down really fast, your hourly wage down really fast.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
I mean, we've expanded that scope. Think of the employers who expect that of their employees. They don't just let them go home at 5 o'clock and forget about the job. That's a piece of,
A luxury.
yeah,
I mean,
but
and now you've
that's a
got
piece of the job description.
yeah, I was gonna say now you've
Yeah.
got employers who are literally using that as a selling point, marketing towards that because it's so out of whack. Work-life balance isn't a thing. This is dangling the carrot. You could have a bit of work-life balance if you come over here.
I mean, you say that. It was a little over a year ago that a small town near us was recruiting teachers for a 4-day school week because that's the only way they could get teachers to come to work for them. And here's the thing, you may get the teachers to come to work for you, but all of a sudden you've got parents who have this kid on the 5th day. They're
What do
both
I
at
do with
work.
them now?
And so now you got childcare costs on that family that just went out the wazoo. Or you have children alone
Mhm.
if they're old enough. Some of them not.
And some of them, that's the only choice.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different world than it was in the 50s for sure. And I mean, one of the things that we don't really talk about was who was really included in that prosperity in the 50s. Or maybe the better way of saying it is who was excluded. I mean, my mom didn't have a job until I was in college.
Did she need one?
She financially, maybe not. Emotionally, maybe.
Women
And
didn't
if you
even have the opportunity to have a credit card until what, 1974?
Something like that.
75?
Yeah.
was that
Not
good or
unless your
bad?
husband, you have a point.
I don't think it's done most of us any good to have one.
No.
I don't disagree, but to have the option to be included means something.
I mean, and that doesn't address people of color, immigrants, and
Well,
because that
you know,
prosperity
uh,
wasn't really for them.
I don't think that's fair to say because at the time, our nation was largely immigrants. I mean, if you want to take a look at the boys who went overseas and fought World War II, it wasn't just white
But
guys,
But
but
they
and they
didn't
Boo,
all
get
came
credit
back and they
for
all
it.
had jobs.
was
That's,
was
I don't
that
think that's fair to
because
say.
was that because white men were getting out of it?
No, it's because
Uh,
everybody went, because that's what you did. That's what we as a society decided, hey, we have to stop this great evil in the East.
yeah.
So everybody went. And most of them came home and were celebrated as heroes for it. And it didn't really matter where they came from.
You think that just because they were a veteran that they walked into a job easily as a black man?
In some cases, not in everyone.
Mm,
And I'm
yeah.
not saying that it made America perfect, but I think this applied by and large to most people. Did racism
Mm,
exist? Yes. Are there massive communities of historically immigrant families across the nation that are pretty successful and have been generationally? Yeah, there are.
I'm not sure I can totally agree with you here.
That's
I
fine.
read a book the other day about a woman who was a nurse in Vietnam, and when she came back, even her own family was incredibly ashamed of her, and they had told their friends that she was on vacation or she had moved over here while she was actually in Vietnam being a nurse. And she came back and was said something about, oh, I was there, I was in Vietnam, and other men, other people who were there in Vietnam, black, white, whatever, were like, "There were no women in Vietnam." "No, you weren't." She was like, "What?" And how isolated coming home was.
that's wild.
Isolating.
I
And
think
that's
you're
why I
also
made the
talking about
comment.
a different era that was almost 40 years later than the one I'm talking about. On a war that was not publicly accepted, that was not widely supported. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you're talking about something different.
I mean, I thought we were all talking about Vietnam.
I mean, I think we were talking about a pretty significant time span of 1950 through 1980. And I know that you brought up World War II, which was prior to that, and sure, fine. I mean, but I think that even just in entertainment culture today, you can sit here and name off all of these TV shows and movies that are talking about, hey, this is what the American dream was. Hey, let's talk about this industry. And it's predominantly white men. I mean, just now, Mom, what was that movie we watched here a few months ago that was talking about the black women in World War II? That I don't remember which one it was. Kerry Washington. I don't remember. But I mean, that's why I made the comment about nobody outside of the white man and his wife got much credit for surviving, thriving, being alive in those moments. I mean, can you name one movie, TV show, book that is talking about a Hispanic man in 1960s? Like, because they're not popularized. But let's talk about Mad Men and all of these awesome, cool white dudes who were making advertising great and they're just really powerful. And I don't think that that credit where credit is due came about until much, much later. I'm not saying that those people didn't exist, that there weren't other people fighting in all of these wars that were beyond white men. There were, absolutely there were. But I don't think that they received credit where credit is due.
Not always, for sure.
Yeah. And not
So
primarily.
so let's kinda shift and talk about the middle class because this is where you guys kind of went as we were discussing this, and I just wanna get your take and your impression of where the middle class has changed.
Well, I mean, again, I think it's shrinking. I think that there have been some very obvious, what's the word that I'm looking for here? Concentrations of wealth that continue and continue to concentrate. I mean, again, we talked about how many Americans live paycheck to paycheck. For our generation, it's 73% of millennials live paycheck to paycheck. Do we really consider living paycheck to paycheck being middle class?
I would say no.
I would probably say yes. So that's a difference in our definition.
So I was just going to ask, Mom, what's your definition of middle class?
Not wealthy, not poor.
So what's your definition of poor, if not paycheck to paycheck?
Poverty, not even living paycheck to paycheck.
So extreme poverty is poor.
Not even extreme, but I mean, there are families out there that can't eat and would never dream of college and don't own their home and have a beater to drive, and that's all. Fun.
Is that middle
That's
class?
no, I don't think so at all. But
Do you think
that
that
doesn't
that
mean
is because I would say that that's probably the majority right now.
really?
Yes.
So if you're explaining somebody to me who you would consider to be poor, what can you give me the same kind of breakdown and characteristics or traits of somebody who is in middle class?
I think the middle class is paying their bills and maybe
Okay.
just barely, but they have good jobs and their kids are in school and there's food on the table and they can do some, maybe they can have pizza on Friday night or go to the movies on Saturday and still pay the bills.
So just
Yeah.
getting by with a smidge more, not saving, not expanding.
Yeah. What's different in your definition of middle class?
I think the middle class is much more comfortable. I think the middle class isn't worried about getting pizza on Friday night because they know that that credit card swipe is going to be okay.
Do you think that the middle class could be both of our definitions and that there's a variance within that?
I don't think so, Mom. I don't. I
So
think that
your
in order
middle
for
class
you
is affluent middle class,
more
not
than yours,
rich, but
I think
has
my middle class
affordability.
has an opportunity to save for the future. Whether or not they're doing it is not what I'm talking about, but has the opportunity to save for the future, has fewer financial concerns. I think that they're more comfortable. Do I think that there are things that they're uncomfortable about? Yes, I do. But I don't think that money is the number one driver for that discomfort. And I think that the people that you're talking about who are barely paying their bills, I think that they're nervous about money.
So is it the young couple who's just starting out and have small children and daycare expenses? Are they middle class?
Can they pay for them? And what happens if one of their cars breaks down? What happens if they get in a wreck on the way to daycare? Can they survive that? Are they going to file for bankruptcy? I think if you're
I don't
teetering on the line of financial default, I don't think that that's middle class. I think that that's poverty.
How much household income do you need to be considered middle class?
I don't know
Interesting.
the answer to that. That's a great question, though.
If I remember correctly, we read something here several episodes ago. I don't remember which episode it was for, but I read some research that said that in order for you to achieve the American dream, you had to make 5 million bucks. $5 million would get you your house, your kids, and some comfort with a
Over what
retirement
period
plan.
of time?
Your lifetime, 5 million bucks. So let me grab a calculator here really quick. Just for and Cole, you're gonna do a much better job of adding
If you make $75,000 a year, it'll take you 67 years to make $5 million. Roughly 45% of American households have an income less than $75,000. So
What percentage
half
of
would take 67 years making $75,000 a year to
every
hit
year
5
of
million.
those 67 years?
Yeah. But that's one earner, right?
That's household income.
Household income.
That's generally two people, almost half, 45% of the United States has a household income of less than 75,000.
And so that's where you see middle class is above that.
Probably. I mean, that's pretty close to being the middle.
So that means if we're looking at them as the stabilizer, they can't be. There's not
Median
enough of them.
income. This is from the 2023 Current Population Survey report. Median income at $40,480. So that means right in the middle, $40,000. So I would say that's pretty close to where you would probably make the cutoff. So that means 45% of households are below middle class.
And if you're using that as your economic buffer and it's gone or it's seriously reduced, the impacts are pretty significant, almost like a domino effect.
That's 154 million people in the United States that make less than $75,000 a year
Per household.
per household. Yeah.
Okay, so I've been thinking this was all political stress, but maybe it's
I mean, I think
not
it's a
political.
combination of so many factors. I don't think that our
Yeah.
political landscape and the decisions that regulators have made have helped.
Right.
I don't think they're the sole cause either. I think we've detached
Just
ourselves from reality, to be perfectly honest with you.
And I think that we've widened the gap between rich and struggling. I think
yeah,
that delta is much, much greater than it has ever been.
I agree with you on that one.
So, kind of turning things into the political side of all of this, Cole, I'm going to lean on you here. Can you give me a little bit of a rundown of Reaganomics?
Not a great one. I can give you a super broad brush
That'll be perfect.
look at it. By reducing taxes at the top, largely corporate taxes, you give these corporations an opportunity to pay their workers more because their taxes are not being,
They're not the burden anymore.
they're not cutting into their margin anymore. So the theory there is that if you take the wealthy people who own the means of production right now and you increase their ability to make profit by reducing the taxes that they're paying, they will pay their workers more as a result. Trickle down. Can we say that that has worked very well? I mean, I think in the extreme short term, we can take a look at tax cuts and bailouts and still see that by and large, wages remain stagnated. Corporate profits have absolutely skyrocketed. So executive payouts have gone with them, but their employee salaries have barely, if kept up with inflation.
The divergence of that wealth disparity.
Yeah. And
So it just didn't work.
well, I mean,
Depends
here's
on
the
who
thing.
you are.
Yeah.
If I am your government and I say, hey, you have 10 people that work for you, and right now you pay them all $10 an hour, or you pay them just $10, and your company makes $200, and you've got 5 employees, and I'm taxing you at 50%, say. So $100 goes to me. You have 5 people that you have to pay $10 to. So you have how much left over? $50.
$50.
That's what your company makes. And I say, okay, you know what? Now, instead of paying me half, you only have to pay me $20.
I get to keep
So
30 whole bucks.
Well, no, because remember, they were paying me 100. Now they only have to pay me 20. So they get
Oh,
80 extra dollars. So now they've got corporate profit at $130, and they still have 5 people that they have to pay $10 each to. Well, if you add $5 to each of those people, so now they're paying $75, and out of 180, they would still have 105, but that's not really what we're seeing happen. We're seeing them keep the whole 130 and everybody stays at $10. So if that trickle stops at the next layer, it doesn't really trickle down. Because, yeah, you could say, okay, this executive now he can go and spend more money and he can infuse that into the economy. And will he? Maybe. But if all of the other CEOs to those companies are doing the same thing, they're not increasing the wages to their, our GDP continues to grow and inflate, and inflation continues to inflate and grow and get larger. But if our wages in relative to that inflation and that GDP growth remain stagnant, you're not propping up the middle class. You're not growing the middle class. The middle class is staying the same or shrinking relative to the rest of the
yeah.
economy. Exactly.
That delta just continues to grow.
So maybe the intent was good.
But the
I mean,
execution sucked.
in theory, well, here's the thing. Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, what do people do? Exploit systems.
People suck.
I was
Welcome,
thinking
welcome.
corporations suck.
Who's running those?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Are there good corporations out there? Sure. Is that the majority of them? Maybe not.
Are there greedy corporations out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So if one subset of corporations is behaving in this greedy fashion and they're trying to concentrate as much wealth as they can, what do they now have the ability to do? Because they are competing on a level different than maybe the good or not greedy corporations.
Mhm.
So they now have all of this additional capital that they're not spending on their workforce that they can use to go and acquire those good corporations and say, hey, you've got a great product. We're going to buy it. It's going to look the same, but now it's got our same greedy mentality. This is where you get into those situations with the robber barons, why we have laws against antitrust and monopolies. And yet, what do we see today besides
Antitrust.
massive corporate consolidation? I mean, how many credit card processing companies are there? I guess maybe there's 3. 2 of them control like 80 something percent of the market. How many telephone service providers are there?
I mean, there was
3,
deregulation,
2.
but
You've got AT&T and Verizon. You've got T-Mobile. T-Mobile, I think,
Who's
uses
using
Verizon
Verizon?
towers. All of the little guys use the towers of the big guys. So they're almost subsidiaries of them.
wow.
I mean, if you go and you take a look at who owns the Fortune 500, the S&P 500, go take a look. See who's majority owner of all of those, because it's the same people. They all own each other.
We've talked
So,
about this.
yeah. So, in general, do you think that kind of the disappearance of the American middle class was happenstance? Was it inevitable? Or was it by design? Big
Originally, I don't think it
questions.
was the intention. But here's the thing. You can have good intentions and other people can exploit those intentions to essentially do the opposite of what you were trying to do pretty
Mhm.
easily. You talk about trickle down economics and you make a mention here, is it trickle down versus trickle up? It's not really trickle up. The problem is if you say, I'm going to put a shower head and somebody takes a plastic bag and wraps that shower head, if they don't poke any holes, that water is all just going to fill into that plastic bag.
Contained. Mhm.
And it's not going to trickle down. And I kind of think that's what happened. So again, the intent can be good,
But the execution can be exploited.
potentially.
Well, and it kind of feels like it was. And then you take into consideration everything else that's going on with the world with globalization and outsourcing and automation, it makes the hands that are in control fewer.
Sure. Yeah, I think that would be a lot less scary if you didn't have as big of a wealth gap as what we see in society today. If you had a large chunk of your society that was relatively comfortable going into an economic state where nobody really has to work, that looks a lot less scary than 45% of your people being below. I
Median
mean,
income.
again, we talked about $75,000, 45% below $75,000. Those people have to work for basically 70 years. That means they start at 18. They're in their late
Almost 90.
80s by the time they are comfortable. So, I mean, yeah, can automation be really good? And you've got Elon Musk talking about things like universal high income. Is that really what we think happens? I mean, because that's kind of the same idea as trickle down economics.
Right. I'm thinking about I'm thinking about a lack of integrity here. Cole, you did your whole scenario about $100 and $75 and $10 per worker and all of these things. And I think that you're absolutely right. Are there companies and corporations who are doing things with integrity to take care of not only the company but also their employees? Yes, absolutely there are. Is that the majority? No, I don't think that it is.
Are those the biggest players? Are those the ones who are seeing the greatest profit? Definitely not.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that we've lost some of that integrity, some of that compassion for other human beings beyond ourselves, that you really see it come to light in these instances. The greed that mom is talking about, the disparity of wealth, the concentration of wealth, and with that comes the concentration of influence. I get to make the decisions. I get to be in control. This is how I'm playing these cards. I don't give a shit about anybody else. And maybe it's not always that strong. I don't give a shit. But I mean, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck,
Probably a duck.
probably a duck. I mean, if you're sitting here paying lobbyists to move the needle in your favor so that you can be this kind of person with this amount of greed, with this amount of influence, control, wealth, because you're the priority rather than the longevity of your company or the lives of your workers, I think that we're lacking a serious level of integrity. I think it's fallen off the map. And I'm thinking about this as I'm saying it out loud. I don't know when that happened.
It makes me wonder if it started with Citizens United, where we gave corporations the ability to influence political outcomes so much. I mean, if you look at, I think it was John Cornyn spent more money in this mid-year, primary than ever's been spent before. And most of the donations of that were corporate donations.
I am by no means sitting here trying to defend John Cornyn, but that specific election is the most expensive in history in terms of
And look
primaries.
at what we're spending. I mean, we're spending
The GDPs
not
of small
a million.
nations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. On midterm elections, and not even
Not on
that's the
change.
primary.
Yeah, I say not on actual change, not on actual impact of things that are going to
No.
trickle down into their districts and into the American people, just on maintaining or gaining control to
Because we
be
gave
able to do.
corporations a huge foothold there to influence. So, Cole, if you take what you're talking about and where we've cut their taxes and not dictated that the savings goes to the employee, and now then we've given them this this ridiculous access to political action. I mean,
On top of that, from a capitalist standpoint, we have, instead of having this carefully regulated economy, this carefully regulated profit taking scenario, we have allowed them to create their own rule book where, I mean, the common strategy across corporations right now is to not have the best product. It is to undercut everyone around you on as massive as of a scale as possible to drive them out of business so that you don't have any competition, which is the opposite of
provide money.
capitalism.
Yeah. You don't need corruption if you have incentives that reward it.
And you just don't think about the impact of all of that on just the average American. But it
You
is.
should. You
You
should.
should.
You
I
should,
think to
but
be a collective member of this society, you should.
you
No
should.
matter where on the spectrum of wealth that you stand. That's integrity, part of it. That's being a good citizen of the world. So going back to kind of the original question, do you guys think that the American dream is dead, or is it just different than what it used to be?
I think it's so muddy that we don't know what it is anymore.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a little bit of both.
And we're so greedy, we don't care if anybody else gets the American dream.
I think
So
the
it's
whole
not important
thing,
anymore.
I think the American dream is a fallacy.
I don't think it always was, but I don't know if it's just unobtainable anymore or if it's not the goal anymore.
I think today it's a fallacy. And
I
maybe
think
it
you would have
wasn't,
to
it
have
didn't
such
used
a
to be,
change
but
in sentiment that you would, again, have to reshape society as it is now in order for it to be attainable for the average American.
yes.
That's a really sad statement.
Yeah.
And I think it affects more than just Americans because I think the whole world leaned into that American dream and can't do that now.
Yes, I would agree with you. I think that we're also, as a country, in some ways, we have to be really careful not to bury our collective head in the sand, not to buy into hype that isn't real anymore. America isn't the manufacturing capital of the world anymore. America isn't the center for industrialization. Are there things that America does well? Sure. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find very many that America does better than anybody else.
Yeah. I can't disagree with you on that one.
Weird.
Speaking of, can we get a weird thought?
Ooh.
I'll give you a funny one. This was a resourceful mom, so obviously she gets my kudos. But Charlotte May Piersdorf was mailed by her mom in 1940 from her home in Grangeville, Idaho, to her grandmother's home 73 miles away in
Hang on,
Lewiston,
like
Idaho.
packed into a box and shipped?
No, they put her parcel stamp on her little jacket, stapled it to her little jacket, and she sat in the mail area on top of the mail with her little apple and her little hard candy that her mom had sent with her and her little suitcase because it had to be under 50 pounds for a parcel post. So for 53 cents and 48 and a half pounds, including her suitcase, she was shipped to her grandmother's.
When was
Because
this?
1914. The train ticket was too expensive. It was $1.55 for that trip. So for half price, they could ship her parcel post. Now, parcel post had just come into being the year before. It was a way for the U.S. mail to send bigger items and that kind of deal. So it had just come in to play, and normally, and there are reports of more than just May being the one who was shipped parcel post. There was actually a small infant that went, but there was always a male clerk that went with that child that was on that journey and so accompanied that child. And then Michael O'Tunnell actually wrote a book later about mailing May to make it, a historical point. But like I said, the mail clerk was there, accompanied her. It was actually the mom's cousin in this case, and accompanied her to her grandmother's door. I kind of had to laugh because they classified her as a baby chick to go into the parcel post. And so shortly thereafter, the post office realized that they had a
little bit of a loophole.
little loophole in their process, and so they changed that within the next year or two to say that only bees and real little baby chicks could be sent parcel post.
My goodness.
I
Can
think
you
that's pretty
imagine?
dang resourceful.
I think it is. I think it is, but I
What's
was
more
kind of with
American than
Cole.
finding a loophole?
But I'm with Cole. Like, I was expecting her to be like stuck in a box and had some snacks in there and taped up and
No.
sent. It's like nobody
On her little
noticed.
coat.
Wow.
On her little coat.
I like it.
There's you a moment in history. American ingenuity at its best.
Weird. So weird. I love that.
All right. And our good
Man.
news story this week.
Okay, are y'all ready for this one? It's pretty fun.
Let's do it.
So normally when you walk into a grocery store, your mission is simple. You find the shortest checkout line and you get in and out as fast as possible. But there's a Publix in Georgia where shoppers do the exact opposite. They walk in looking for Michael. Michael Mastrangelo is a 29-year-old cashier whose checkout line regularly stretches down the aisle. Customers wait 30 to 40 minutes just to be rung up by him. Not because he's the fastest, obviously, but because of how he makes them feel. Michael, who has autism, has worked at the same store for more than a decade. During that time, he's turned his checkout lane into something more like a neighborhood hangout, chatting with customers about their families, their day, or whatever's going on in their lives at the moment. His connection with his customers runs so deep that many people show up to cheer him on at his basketball games. He has used his connection to give back. While working his register, he's encouraged customers to donate to the Special Olympics. In just 6 days this last year, he raised more than $31,000.
Wow.
So, in a world that is obsessed with speed and efficiency, Michael has proven something really simple. Sometimes people aren't looking for the fastest checkout line. They're looking for the person who makes them feel seen.
Mm.
So if anybody happens to be in Georgia at a Publix, look for Michael. He's the long line, and go get encouraged by him and enjoy that time because it's really special.
Kudos to him.
For sure.
Kudos to Michael. Keep it up, buddy.
That means it doesn't take a whole lot to make people happy.
No, it really doesn't.
Love you guys.
Love
Love you
y'all.
too.